importance of my bio would be I'm a dad, 4 kids. And the reason I have been put into this position is because of what's going on, in our backyard here in Amherst. My children, 2 of them thankfully have graduated. I have 2 kids in the school systems. One is going to be a senior next year, 17-year-old son, and I have a 14-year-old daughter that's going to be a freshman. So I was asked if I could just give you a brief update on what's been going on, so I'm here to do that. So I just want to give you some factual sequence of events and some of the information that I have gathered in my correspondence with the board and with Mr. Sayers, who is the superintendent of the Amherst school systems. So all this for me started on May 13th. The Department of Defense, the DOJ and DOE sent the mandate down telling everybody that you need to open your bathrooms to anybody who feels like they want to go into the girls' bathroom or boys' bathroom. I thought, well, I don't need to worry about it in Amherst, but being a parent that cares about my kids, I wanted to play it safe. So I wrote a quick paragraph, sent it to the school board, and just asked, hey, just want to know what you guys are going to do with this. Make sure you stand up for us. Make sure that before anything happens, you discuss things with parents. So that's how all this started, 1 paragraph email to the board. And 6 days went by without a response, which is okay. It's a board, nobody knows who should respond. So I was patient. And then my kids came home one day and they said, Dad, you're not going to believe what we saw today in our school at homeroom time during school hours. And I could not believe it. And I'm not going to show you this whole thing, but I want you to see what they are indoctrinating our kids with during school time.
A story 4 months in the making. The last midterm to be shown on Steel News Live.
And notice
Steel News Live
starts now. 4 months in the making.
Good morning, Steel. I'm Taylor Schultz.
And I'm Tia Deschek. Welcome to a special edition of Steel News Live.
Each year, the senior TV class produces long-format stories for their semester final exams.
This year, we've shown you stories on self-led addiction, underage drinking, a short film about sexual assault, and a commercial for the city of Amherst.
We have 1 final midterm to show you today, and it's been a real challenge to get on the air.
We intended to run it back in February, but a series of obstacles caused a delay in bringing it to you.
Those obstacles have finally been cleared, some adjustments have been made to satisfy all involved, and all the permissions we needed have been secured.
It's important to point out that the school administrators never asked us to make adjustments to the original story.
Instead, we made those ourselves, and today we bring you the final story.
Here's a midterm that Taylor and I produced along with Denver Boss and Sarah Vanek. We all know who Caitlyn Jenner is.
How can we not?
She's been everywhere, from Twitter to magazine covers, from award shows to the tabloids. She even has her own reality show. Our teachers and parents know who Caitlyn Jenner is, but chances are they remember her better as Bruce Jenner, the 1976 Olympic decathlon champion who won the title of Best Athlete in the World. Regardless of how we know of Caitlyn or of Bruce, one thing is certain. Caitlyn Jenner has helped spread a word that has never been discussed on Steel News Live: transgender.
Our research estimates that there are 8 to 10 Steel students that define themselves as transgender, and that may make some of you uncomfortable.
I will send this to anybody. It's 12 minutes long of indoctrinating my kids, okay, during public school time. Needless to say, as a parent who loves my kids, who loves Jesus Christ, this was extremely offensive to me. They did it without following their policy for what they call controversial issues, which required that the superintendent submit in writing to the board permission before any controversial, curriculum is shown to our kids. Also requires that me as a parent be given the opportunity to remove my kids. None of that was offered to me. Okay. So after this video came out, remember I said I haven't received any feedback from the board. You can imagine my blood boiling. I sent a follow-up note with a link to the video saying, okay, I assume you've made your decision based on this video. In case you haven't seen it, here's a link. Apparently none of the board members had a clue that this video was shown to our kids. None of them. None that I know of, because I know members in the board, I will not say who, but they had no clue that this was being shown to our kids. So there was no permission asked by our board. So I sent a number of questions, clearly with my concern. So you've made a decision. What's your policy? Who is allowed to use, the girls' bathroom? Who's allowed to use the boys' bathroom? Who determines, who enforces that policy? So on and so on. No responses to those questions. 2 days later, 3 days later, on May 26th, this is after this video, May 26th, headline news in the Amherst News Times. It's got a picture of Mr. Sayers, Mr. May, who's the principal. School officials in Amherst, Oakland, and Wellington say they'll comply with a new federal bathroom and locker room policy for transgender students. Goes on to quote Mr. Sayers and all the support that he has for this issue. So this comes out, and finally I get a response from Mr. Sayers, and the board would not respond to me, obviously because they haven't been involved in this. So one of the board members sent me a note saying Mr. Sayers will respond to you and answer your questions. Here's his response to me on May 23rd. We understand your concerns surrounding this issue. In the public education area, we're oftentimes subject to various policy mandates from the national and state level. We may or may not agree with all the mandates as individuals or as a district, but we have a responsibility and obligation to implement the policies to the best of our ability. So he's using the false premise that there's a mandate and therefore he has no choice. And then here's what he says regarding my concerns about my daughter. As public educators, we are responsible for serving and meeting the needs of all students. In recent years, our high school administration, guidance counselors, and staff have worked collaboratively with transgender students and their families to make sure their educational experience is safe and positive. It is my understanding that these situations have been dealt with professionally and discreetly. I have received nothing but positive feedback from students, staff, and parents in terms of the way the situations have been handled at the school. If your child ever feels uncomfortable with a restroom situation, I would encourage them to contact the guidance counselor or staff member. So implied in this, as I read it, is that a policy is already unofficially in place. Not written, but verbally. So I called Mr. DeWine's office, in desperation, needing something to help, in this battle. I asked their office if they could, one, join the lawsuit, the other 11 states against the federal government, and more importantly, I told them what was going on here in Amherst. Could you please write a letter clarifying that this so-called mandate is no mandate at all, and that nobody needs to comply to it. And 2 days later, I like to think my call, I made an influence, probably a lot of other people, I hope, were going as well. 2 days later, okay, God bless Mr. DeWine, because the letter that he gave us, that he sent out, this has been tremendous ammunition to shoot down the false premise that Mr. Sayers has, that I have to do this. The attempt to rationalize and politicize the way schools address gender identity issues down to the level of school locker rooms, showers, and bathrooms might be dismissed as simple, bureaucratic arrogance, were it not so potentially harmful to our civic discourse and to the important rights and needs of all school children involved. Your assistants apparently have concluded that people of good faith across this country, informed by the basic decency and common sense of their communities, cannot be trusted to work through any particular locker room problems of this sort. Instead, the premise of the letter is that local solutions undertaken in good faith must be displaced by edict from Washington, D.C. As the chief law officer of the state of Ohio, I write to advise you that this judgment of the Dear Colleague letter is wrong, both in its elitist disregard for our 21st century communities and as a matter of law. Then he goes on to say, if your departments act against our state contrary to law, I will defend vigorously the interests of the state of Ohio. I took this letter and I sent it to Mr. Sayers. I exposed his false premise that he has to do this. And it's very interesting how his position has changed since this letter. And maybe because of the pressures of parents like me and that have been hopefully bombarding him. So his position, here's his response on June 1st. Thank you for sharing your perspectives. As you understand, there are many viewpoints on this and many other topics. Our board and administration have not made any decisions or taken any votes in support of opposition of any federal policy. I then called him for a one-on-one meeting. I showed up on Tuesday of this week. I was intended to be just me and him. Apparently he wasn't comfortable with that, so we had somebody else with him, Mike Molnar, very good gentleman. And also I have had the utmost regard for Mr. Sayers as well. So I'm not here to attack him, but he is not my enemy. But I told him that I'm going to defend my daughter, and that he does not need to take it personally. But I met with him this Tuesday, and I asked him, why you now say you do not support this issue, or you have not yet made a decision. I had this paper with me. Why does this say contrary? I asked him why they showed this video to my kids. I wish somebody from the Amherst News Times was here, because what he said is that he was misrepresented and that this is a misleading article. And so I said, Mr. Sayers, pick up the phone, call it the Amherst News Times, clarify your position on the issue. He couldn't look me in the face. He said, I can't do that. I said, well, you just said that you basically, were misrepresented. Pick up the phone, call the Amherst News Times, and clarify your position. I can't do that. Mr. Molnar speaks in, and he says that they're afraid that any clarification of their position is going to make Amherst the firestorm front and center of this issue in the nation. And you know what I said? I said it's too late. You should have thought of that before you said what you said to the Amherst News Times. You should have thought of that before you indoctrinated my kids with these lies and these deceptions. It's too late. The firestorm is here, and you need to deal with it. You need to decide to stand up. You're a leader in the school system. I asked him, what is the policy? Point blank, because this response implies something has already taken place. So I asked him, point blank, Mr. Sayers, does this, collaborating with the transgender students, did you verbally tell them that they allowed to use the bathrooms of the opposite sex? Without being able to look me in the eyes, he says, I don't know. Mr. Sayers, I'm asking you a question. Have you verbally given permission for students to use bathrooms that are opposite their biological sex? I don't know. So I said, if you don't know, and he says, well, I was not involved in those meetings. I says, well, who was involved in those meetings? He said the guidance counselors were. So I asked the question again, did the guidance counselors give verbal permission to students to use the bathroom that is opposite of their biological sex? He says, I don't know. And I said, Mr. Sayers, you are the leader of the Amherst school system. You must know. Because if my daughter or anybody else's daughter, either intentionally or accidentally, is exposed to biological male parts while they're in the bathroom, you will be liable because you have no policy, and that is negligence. You have no policy. You have a policy. And I asked them why they don't have a policy. Well, of course, ever since man has existed, we knew that a man, has man parts and a woman has woman parts, and so there's no need to have a policy. I said, well, our culture has changed. This issue is upon us. You have to have a bathroom policy, one that protects our kids and their privacy, and at the same time can accommodate the needs of these kids. Because there are common sense solutions. And so I implored him to implement a common sense solution, very simple solution. Implement single-stall bathrooms in the school systems, call them gender neutral. The poor transgender kids who, every time they have to go to the bathroom today, you can imagine, they're thinking, well, you know, I can't go into the guy's room because I think I'm a girl and I'm going to get beat up. Okay, that's genuine stress. They go into the girls' bathroom, they look around and realize, okay, the parts here are different, I'm not quite comfortable here either. I said, you haven't given them any option where they could go to the bathroom and for the first time in their lives not be stressed. Put in single-stall bathrooms, okay, gender neutral, and problem is solved. You solve the problem for the 0.3% of the kids, and you do so without violating the safety and the privacy rights and the decency and the modesty of the 99.7% of the kids in the Amherst school.